Narration or internal thoughts? What's the difference? You've got two editors for 5 minutes. I'm Karin Beery with Right Now Editing.
And I'm Peg Thomas at pegthomas.com, Peg with two G's.
We've actually been debating this for about 5 minutes now.
Over 5 minutes.
What is the difference between narration in your story and your internal dialogue or your character's thoughts? So I'm going to start with narration. The narrator is generally seen in an omniscient point of view. But a lot of genre fiction these days, you're writing in first or third person. You're not writing in omniscient. Even within third person, though, oftentimes the story, you see the dialogue, you've got a character voice, and then you've got some description or you've got some reflection, and all of a sudden there's a change in the voice. And that's a narrator's voice. But if the narrator's not a character, then really what you're doing is you're showing the author's voice. That's not the place in genre fiction.
Not anymore. Used to be back in the day. That's how everybody wrote, and that was I think that was back when they got paid by the word or something. I don't know. But anyway, used to be that was the way all fiction stories were written. Now we write in deep third person point of view or deep first person point of view, where we are really presenting the story from the character themselves. And when we talk about internal dialogue, this is the character's thoughts, and you want your character's thoughts to be consistent with the character. If you've had, for example, a character who's been a hillbilly all along and he's speaking like a hillbilly and he's dropping his G's and he's whatever, and then you go to his internal dialogue and suddenly he's speaking high school English, textbook stuff, you've lost your character flow. You've changed who he is. And that's going to throw your reader because they're used to hearing their character a certain way. And when you go to internal thoughts, you need to keep in his same character, keep in his same vernacular, and make him as authentic as possible that way. And so that as you're writing from his point of view, you're seeing the world through his eyes, and you're hearing his voice in your head when he is having these thoughts that are coming through with descriptions of things he sees, really bringing the whole story to life from his perspective. And in that case, those internal thoughts are really important. But, Karin, they can be overdone.
They can be. And the big thing you need to pay attention to is, are these thoughts, is this narration from the character's point of view or is it from the writer's point of view? A lot of times, as an author, you come up with some really great descriptions. You've got some really great wordplay there and you want to show it off. But if you're showing it off in the story, then you're pulling the reader out of the story and it's no longer about the story, it's about the writing. And when it's about the writing, you're not writing genre fiction anymore. There can be a place for this in some literary fiction. There's definitely a place for this in personal essays, in poetry. But when you're especially writing like the very strict romance genre, or you're going to be writing the mystery genre, characters are huge and you need to make sure that there's that consistency.
And what happens if you get to a large passage in your book and all your character is doing is thinking about things?
There are active scenes, but there are also reflective scenes. There needs to be a balance.
Yes.
I think the thing that I see most frequently is when every chapter starts with the character thinking about what happened in the previous chapter.
Oh, that's not good.
And it's difficult for two reasons. First of all, you're stopping the story because nothing is happening. There's
You're backing
just
up.
more thinking.
Yeah.
And also, you're not trusting your reader because literally, if it happened 3 pages ago, the reader's going to remember.
Always trust your
And
reader.
if you're doing your job, the reader can't put the book down. So they didn't read that 3 days ago. They read it a minute ago. They're going to remember what happened. So the internal dialogue is key because it helps the reader connect with the characters on a very personal, very intimate level.
And it can give the reader a little bit of a break, a little bit of a rest between all the action.
Right. You can't keep the high action going over and over and over again. Watch your favorite Marvel movies. Even within those, there are scenes where there's some slowdown, there's some reflection. You've got to give everyone a chance to breathe. But there has to be balance. There never in fiction. If you ever have an editor who tells you that something can never happen in fiction, they're lying. Run. You absolutely can have thinking scenes. You absolutely can have reflective scenes. It's just about balance and it's about making sure it's authentic to the character and to the story.
Both of those. Very important. Keep in character, keep authentic. And I hear it again.
Time's up.
5 minutes is over. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
2 editors, 5 minutes.